Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Schapera, and I'm the program director at Northern Hills Synagogue. And each week we are conducting a virtual interview series while we are kind of stuck in isolation. And this week, my interview guest is Sarah Weiler, who has been a longtime member of Northern Hills. So thank you, Sarah, for agreeing to come on and to talk with us.
Sure, my pleasure.
So Sarah, I'm wondering, what is your connection to Northern Hills? How did you become involved in the community?
All right, well, my husband is Brazilian and I'm American from Ohio, and we started our relationship actually in Columbus, Ohio, because I just graduated from Ohio State and he had come to do a course there. And then from Ohio, we went to Chicago, where I was getting my master's in University of Chicago. And then from Chicago to Sao Paolo, Brazil. And then after 2 years in Sao Paulo, we landed in Cincinnati. And at that time, we were searching for a synagogue. And Northern Hills was actually one of a couple synagogues I had researched and thought was interesting for us. And I phoned the synagogue up during the week and I asked, could we come one day on Shabbat? Because here in Sao Paulo, as it's a big city, it's kind of like New York City. There's a lot of securities. Like, you can't just show up to synagogue and go in. You have to kind of arrange it in advance. And when I called Northern Hills Synagogue back in, I think it was the end of 2002, beginning of 2003, Bernice was working there, and she was like, oh, just come, please, we'd love to have you. And so we showed up one Saturday morning when the synagogue was still out in Finneytown on Fleming Road, and she was absolutely right. We were so welcomed. As soon as synagogue was over, I remember very clearly, as if it was yesterday, Rabbi Barnard talked to us, Rebecca, who was then the educational director, came over and talked to us. And then Jeff Basson, I don't know if he was president at the time, came and talked to us. And everyone was so nice and we felt so good. And so our synagogue search ended right then and there with Northern Hills. And so we've been members ever since, even though we have a lot of back and forth between Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Cincinnati, Ohio. Northern Hills is really our congregational family and spiritual home. So shortly after, like say a year and a half after that first moment of coming to shul, my husband and I got married, because we were already married civilly, but we hadn't had a religious ceremony. So Rabbi Barnard married us, and Claire Lee played, and Gaina Basson too played their instruments at our wedding. And it was very, very special. So we were our claim to Northern Hills fame is that we were the last wedding at Fleming Road. And a few months after, I'm not sure how many, maybe 6, 7, 8 months later, we were the first baby naming at the synagogue, the new synagogue on Fields Erdel, when our Hannah was born in 2004, in February 2004. So that's our claim to fame, is being kind of the last big ceremony, a family, ritual, life ritual at Fleming Road, and then the first one at Fields Erdel. So, and it's just the place we've always come. All of our kids, from Hannah to Esther to Haya, had their baby namings at Northern Hills, and it's the place that we really feel like at home.
Oh, that's a beautiful history. It's, as you were speaking, it's amazing, how much has changed since 2004, say, but really how much has stayed the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, that feeling of being welcomed kind of immediately upon walking in the door is very much a part of the community.
Definitely. I mean, what's been nice to see over the years is when we first came, we were much younger. And a lot of the families that are really, you know, families that that were the founders of the synagogue and everything, their kids were kids still. And now their kids are adults, having babies and having their own families, but they were like teenagers. And at that time, the synagogue was full of teenagers and, you know, kids turning into teenagers or teenagers turning into young adults. And now to see how these families have grown, and many of our friends at Northern Hills now are, you know, grandparents and great-grandparents. And we have, you know, so many of our closest friendships have been, you know, through Northern Hills, people who are like extended family to us.
It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful community. So for those who don't know, you're not currently in Cincinnati. You're currently living in Sao Paolo.
Yes.
Right now. And I know that we're all kind of wondering, as we deal with our own personal isolation due to COVID, how has the coronavirus and the isolation affected you in Brazil, and then you and your Judaism?
Right. Well, we are, you know, isolating. It is pretty much a lockdown aside from essential workers here in Sao Paulo. It has not, you know, lifted at all. Like I know in Ohio, some businesses are starting to reopen this week. We're on lockdown until the end of May right now. It might go longer. A big difference here is that we're in the Southern Hemisphere, so we're getting into the colder months now, as you can see how I'm dressed. And so actually now flu season and the season of respiratory illnesses is whereas the US is like going out of that, we're getting into it. So it's not a good thing. The numbers are, you know, getting worse here rather than better. But we've been in isolation about the same amount of time as you guys in Ohio. So since about mid-March. How has it affected us? Well, we're pretty much, you know, at home. The kids are all in online school, coordinating that as a mom and as a professional. So I'm an educator, so I'm still working full-time from home, you know, whatever full-time means right now, with trying to take care of the kids and help them with what they're doing with their schoolwork and doing my work. And I'm also finishing my doctoral thesis, trying to. So I think it's a juggling act, just like for most people. In terms of our Judaism, I mean, just like you guys there, you know, we came into lockdown right before Pesach, which wasn't easy. So all of our plans to be together with our friends were canceled, which was a big bummer. We were also planning to, because the kids were going to have their breaks right around after that time. We were planning to go to the States. We even had tickets bought. That was canceled. So it's been hard because, I mean, a big part of our Judaism, and I think most people's, is community and being together with others. And that has been, you know, curtailed drastically. But still our family life, we celebrate Shabbat together. We celebrate the holidays together. I love baking challah, and now that bread baking has kind of extended into a daily practice. I don't make challah every day, but I make like a simpler bread every day because I wake up early. And so by the time everybody's up, I just pop the bread into the oven because it's had time to rise. So that's kind of been nice. I mean, we're around the table together, eating more meals together, spending more time together. So, you know, there is an upside.
Yeah, so it sounds very similar to a lot of what we're going through, and yeah, some things are opening, but actually the date for opening is end of May. So
okay.
Yeah, so it's.
I'm on some like sign up lists for some businesses and stuff. So I've received some emails like that some retail shops and things are starting to open up. So, but I think it's slowly, and I'm trying to follow the news. So I follow between CNN and BBC and the local news here, trying to, you know, understand what's happening in other places.
Yeah, it's very different than anything we're used to, that's for sure.
Right.
Well, thank you for sharing about your experience with coronavirus. And
Yeah.
before we go, I want to ask if you have anything that you'd like to say to your Northern Hills family, any messages or whatever you may want to share.
I just, you know, we miss everybody a lot. As soon as we can, we want to be there in person and be at shul on Shabbat with everybody. So I'm waiting to rebook our flights for whenever that'll be possible. That's the main thing. I mean, from a distance, it's kind of funny because even if you're living, you know, in the same neighborhood as friends, the distance is, it seems like a lot more. So being so far away right now, it doesn't feel as distant as it usually does. I'm able to, you know, through social media and everything, keep up with kind of, you know, all the highs and lows of our friends there. So seeing that we have friends who have new members to the family or who have lost loved ones. And so still able to connect and reach out to them, which has been really good. But I just can't wait for the time when we can all really be together and I can just give a big hug to everybody there that I miss, and I know the kids miss, and my husband misses being there. So as soon as we can, we hope to all be together again.
Well, I know that you are also very sorely missed too.
Thank you.
Well, Sarah, it was so good to see your face, and I know that it will be a pleasant viewing for all of the members of Northern Hills who are still here in Cincinnati and who have also traveled around the world.
Yeah.
Again, for joining us. So thank you all for watching. And if you have any questions about these interviews or Northern Hills during lockdown, please feel free to contact me. And we will, I'll see you all later. Bye.
Bye.